Writing an angel check is easy. Knowing why is the flex. Angel investing. Underused, misunderstood, explained badly. Angels Decoded, an educated and raw take. In cahoots with Play Money.
Hello, people. Welcome back to episode number 3. This is Angels Decoded. I'm Andy Walsh from Startups Decoded, our little sister podcast, and I have my friend and collaborator, and I used another word last time, which I'm not going to say again, but we're in cahoots is the word I would wanted. Cheryl Kellond, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Can we call me Sheza again this whole episode? We didn't do that at all the last one.
I'm sorry. I don't like to let you down. I feel like I'm letting down my mum. It's just the way that you carry yourself is that I want to impress you. So if I'm not doing that, then I feel like I'm sad on the inside a little bit.
Well, I don't want you ever to be sad, but I love using my Australian nickname.
Yeah, we were talking about Vegemite just before, and in the sense of cooking, and I love it. But you had a very obscure reference to Land Down Under, which is a song by Men at Work, and I love that you know a classic old '80s song from Australia.
That's because I'm a classic old '80s gal. Like that was like a jam. They used to play it at like every bar mitzvah I went to. When I was 13, they played that song and Safety Dance.
Wow. Okay. We need to talk about that another time, but I think we're going to lose people if we start talking about some classic 80s hits. We're not a commercial radio station. We are Angels Decoded, and we're talking about angel investments, and it's a category that is formalizing, it's becoming more robust, and our goal is to make it more accessible so it becomes very buoyant, and that has such a positive flow-on effect. And the industry is surrounded and saturated, I would say, with acronyms. One of those is SPV, which folks playing at home is a special purpose vehicle, and that is.
Oh, now I know all about what it is. Just because you told me what that acronym is.
And it's not a self-driving car. It's nothing that's new in tech. It's actually very specific about investment. So can you give us, I'd like to actually, before you tell us what it is, do you think that they're important from the investment standpoint? Is it something, I mean, it hasn't been around for a long time, but do you think it's actually changed the investment world now as far as start to finish, creating future opportunity for startups?
100%. I think it's been transformative. But if I tell you why, I'll have to explain what it is to get to the why.
Okay. Tell us what it is. Let's start there.
Okay. So as you said, special purpose vehicle. What it is it's like an LLC. Well, first off, it is an LLC. It has an EIN. It exists as an entity. But it acts like a mini investment fund, but its goal is to invest in just one startup. So most angel investments you will do, and I will go as far to say most angel investments you should do, we'll unpack that in a second, will be through an SPV. And what that means is you as the angel are joining this LLC. You actually don't sign the investment agreements with the startup. You sign the subscription agreement to join the SPV. And then your money gets pooled with a whole bunch of other people's money and whoever is organizing the SPV. So like on my platform, Play Money, we have a little fund manager company called Yellow Purse Capital Partners that organizes the SPVs and speaks and operates on behalf of the collective of investors who are part of the SPV. That SPV organizer will sign the investment agreement, whether it's a safe or a convertible note or a priced round, will sign that with the startup. And then it's the name of the SPV that appears on the cap table. And the cap table is just a list of all the investors. It's a fancy word for that. This does a few different things. I guess the biggest structural change it made to the industry is it made it possible for a bunch of folks writing smaller checks to participate in startup investing. No, right? Like, so let me tell you why. You want to ask me a question? I was like, I should stop here.
No, I think it's great. And there's a lot of information there. And if you're not familiar, even with an LLC, which is a limited liability company, it's quite often used for early stage companies. And ultimately, you as a human operate as the business from a tax purpose, but as the name says, it also removes risk or an element of risk to you as an individual. So understanding an LLC, just it's peace of mind, right? As far as if you're putting money to invest in something.
Yep. Well, I think, yes, it does. But more importantly, it's more respectful to the founder And let me tell you what I mean. Like, if you're investing in a founder, you want them to spend all of their time and energy and capital focused on their customer and growing their business. When you are a small check investor and go directly on the cap table, and everyone used to think that's so fancy. Oh, I want to be directly on the cap table. I want to do that. That's fancy. You are making a world of hurt for that founder. Every single individual investor on that cap table is this legal and administrative burden they carry with them for the life of the company. AngelList estimated that the cost to a founder for every unique person on their cap table over a 10-year period might be $1,500 to $2,000. Every time you have a big like voting thing you have to do as a startup, or more importantly, every time you raise another round of funding, or if you want to get acquired, all of those people on your cap table have to get a giant set of documents that they have to sign and agree to. And it's a huge amount of, if you're not a professional investor and you're not used to these documents, if you're not always plugged into your email and what you need to do, I got a secret for you. You're going to let that founder down. Like, if you don't know what a Rofer is, that's my test for people. I was like, do you know what a Rofer is? And if they don't say yes, I said, you shouldn't be directly on the cap table. You should go through an SPV because you will be asked to sign Rofers all the time. My inbox is full of Rofers. Because I sign the follow-on investing agreements with all the startups that run SPVs on Play Money. Like, me and my fund admin team are in charge of doing that. So the end investor doesn't have to. So you've showed a lot of respect to the founder. You've made their time and money more efficient because they can deal with one professional for a whole group of angels instead of dealing with every one of them individually.
There's a lot that, from a protection perspective, communication perspective, but again, going back to our topic is if you're stepping into angel investment for the first time, or maybe you've had a couple and you want to formalize it yourself a little bit, having that peace of mind, because if you have to have legal reviews and understand all the future investments that come through as well, and you just talked about VCs, if they're investing and they see a cap table that's got 90 people on it, they're going to melt and they'll tap out. So you're potentially restricting future investment for the founder as well. So that cleanliness of an SPV has a lot of upside. And off it though too, there's of course a group of people that then manage that LLC, and it is designed as just like one single entity to do one role and manage that on a behalf. But that legal compliance, all the things that you would need to do is taken care of. So even if you do have some fees, you're actually in much better hands for someone that does it, who has that expertise, so you don't have that burden.
You mentioned fees, and I want to talk about that because I had maybe a spicy conversation last week about with an angel looking to invest on the platform that got her feathers ruffled that there were going to be fees, which was whatever. So yes, here's some of the things people have pushed back on SPVs. First of all, there are fees. You are paying a professional group to manage an LLC. They have to pay registration and filing fees in all the states that the investors come from by law. So there's like hard costs. They have to do tax reporting on that LLC, both to the government through the 1065 form and through all the investors in that SPV through K1s. And we have to do that every year. There's a financial event. We have to manage distributions. And then, yes, every time that the company needs something voted on or approved, we have to review those docs, make sure they're okay, sign those docs. If there's a change in what it means for your investment, like let's say you invested on a safe and now it's a priced round and like the SPV now owns shares and they've increased in value, we have to summarize what that means and tell you about it. So there are fees. They're usually small in comparison to what startup returns look like. Like on Play Money, we charge a 10% fee and it's capped at $1,500 per investor. So if you're writing really big checks, you'll pay less. If you're writing small checks, you're paying 10%. That's less money than you would pay to invest in a fund. So still cheaper than a fund, not free. We're doing a whole bunch of work for you. So you're not going to be the investor that lets the whole startup down by not signing your documents and not knowing what a Rofer is. So there's trade-offs there. The other piece though, and this is where SPVs have gotten a bad rap. Usually if you're an investor and you're on an SPV, all the founding team knows is that there's an SPV on their cap table. They have no idea the angels behind it, which means those angels are living in a black box. Like when you invest in a startup, you want to go along on the journey with that founder, right? You want to see their ups and downs. You want to feel it. And if you can be helpful, you want to be useful. And you can't do that when you're locked in a little black box and they don't know you're there and you don't hear from them. This is one of the biggest things we changed at Play Money. Every one of our founders gets the full list and contact information of all of the investors on their SPVs. And we encourage them to include all those investors on their monthly and quarterly stakeholder updates. I would say about 95% of our founders do that. And it changes the whole experience, allows the angels that invest through Play Money to be helpful to those founders when those founders need help with things they can help on. And it keeps them plugged into that founder's journey and story, which is like a little bit of, I mean, I don't want to say this, but it's a little bit of what you're paying for as an angel. You're buying a paid newsletter subscription with potential, unicorn upside down the road, but you want to get that newsletter. You want those updates. You care the most about this company. So that's
Yeah.
sort of the costs and the former problem people used to have with these and how we're fixing them.
There's a whole episode in talking about that relationship between an angel investor and the founder and the value add. But that is one example where the ability to contribute and be involved, but not have the burden of compliance, which is you have to have knowledge. Like you just talked about the 1065. I can promise you there's a whole bunch of other forms from a tax perspective, from a future investment perspective. And again, you talked about safes and convertibles and shares and values. You don't want to deal with all that. And the fees you're talking about are tiny. And I can promise you, and there's a lot of heat actually Q4 last year, 2025, around the fees in VCs and funds and how much is actually getting pulled aside from LP money to keep doors open. And it's fascinating. And there was a lot of, let's say, negativity, let's call it scrutiny, a little bit of like stroking chin going, hang on a minute, like there's a lot of money here going out the side door that doesn't get deployed. So what you're talking about, I can promise anyone listening, is a tiny portion of what you would see on a traditional fund investment.
Yep. I'm glad I appreciate you saying that.
And I'm not poking any sort of heat or negativity towards a fund. I understand, what goes into that, etc. But from a transparency perspective, knowing that is important too. You know what you're stepping into. There's cost. But do some reading, and we're not going to unpack it in detail here. Just do a little bit of research. You get on ChatGPT and ask around compliance from an angel perspective, all the things that you would need to do and the scenarios across what may be 10 years. And think about the cost if you did it yourself, if you needed legal support, accountant support, or the people that you would pay. Like that is a lot of heavy lifting.
It absolutely is. And if you are not convinced it's heavy lifting, go then and look up phantom income and then figure out when you would know you had that or not, because that is one of the things you'll need to deal with if you're direct on a cap table sometimes. And if you invested through an SPV, we'll figure it all out for you.
And I would love someone to call me out here, but if they could send me a platform that you invest in that doesn't have fees, please send it through. And I expect my inbox to be very dry for the next week or two,
right?
Because everyone takes a clip and it's the cost of entry, but it's also the safety net to a certain degree of outside of the risk of investing period and whether you get a return or not. It's everything that goes around it, because if you don't get a return, but you've all of a sudden something happens that you haven't complied, then think about that scenario.
Yep. You're going to make your money back just in someone knowing that something is QSBS qualified. I'm going to drop an acronym to end our acronym episode. Stay tuned, bat friends, to find out what that really means.
And I have to call out too, very specifically, is I am not qualified to give investment advice. This is my personal opinion. So I always like to say that in episodes is that I've observed and I've read and there's things that I've seen, but my one advice is to speak to someone who is an expert and ask some questions so you understand what you're committing to, what that looks like, and the value of having a platform like Play Money who has an SPV and does that work for you to have peace of mind that when you invest, that is taken care of for the lifetime of your investment with that company.
Yep, I would. And the only thing I'll add to that, it's also most respectful of the founder so they can focus on the things they need to do to make sure your investment gets the maximum value. Respect the founder. You're betting on them because you love them. Make their life easy.
And you want them to succeed. and not harder. Investment is hard enough. And you touched on something there, which we're going to focus on a whole episode, which is around the safe note versus a convertible. But I don't want to get you too wound up.
I know, because I'm so wound up about that. I've been wanting to talk about it for weeks. I'm like, I'm going to throw some fire. So
yeah, it's definitely something that has become topical, and I work with a lot of young founders on that early stage pre-revenue. And the question always is, do I do a safe or do a convertible? And if you're an angel investor, just understand that both of those scenarios have obviously a contract, but the flow and effect of each and what happens off the back of it, and for the lifetime of the business as well. And I'm just like poking Sheza here as far as
just fair. I'm like getting.
It's like a jack in the box. I'm not let it quite open up yet, but we're going to be covering that in our next episode, which is why I wanted to close on it. But anything else that, from an angel perspective, that people should know about an SPV, and when they go to, whether it's a direct angel investment, if you're considering that versus going into a platform, the upsides of a platform that has all of that administration buttoned up to a point to give you peace of mind, because what we're trying to create here is a forum to help people understand the most effective and best practices you can use to make an angel investment.
Yeah. That pretty much does it.
Nice.
Be good with the founder, protect yourself, make your life easy. Woohoo! SPVs!
And enjoy the ride and get that email in your inbox and look at the company, how they're going, how you can help. And that's one of the best things about angel investments is you feel like that you've got a sister or a brother that you love dearly, that you want them to succeed, and you just stand up when you need to and help when they need it most.
Yep. We'll talk about some stories about that in a future episode. Some of my favorite stories are about angels that helped me, that didn't realize they were even helping.
Yeah, angel by name, angel by nature.
Aw, that's such a sweet thought.
It is. Well, we'll close on that today. Thank you for listening to Angels Decoded. Andy Walsh, Sheza
Kellond.
She's my partner in education and inspiration. Angels Decoded, a weekly podcast for people learning the craft. Angel investing made easy. Subscribe, then decide. Angels Decoded, in cahoots with Play Money.